How are you doing, Miss Saltzpa?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for asking. So happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So happy to have you here. So we're waiting on Glenn. Glenn usually gets in about 15 minutes. So we'll see if he has technical difficulties. I'm usually 15 minutes in on technical difficulties too. Is this light back here bad? I got
It's not amazing, but it looks sort of celestial.
Got my co-host right here. Come on, kiddo. Can you shut that door? Can you shut that door? So. Uh-oh.
Good idea.
So this one's on connection. Did you hear how loud that was? Did you hear that? Wherever you're located?
I heard it all the way over here.
That's great. Let me adjust this.
Oh yeah, if you can fix that, that would be.
I'm gonna fix that.
It'd just be easier for people to look at.
Sophie, talk to Amber.
Hey, Soapster. The episode is all about connection.
What do you have to say about connection?
And that's all I have to say about that. That's the line you use after that.
That connection, that human connection. What do you think about it? You think it's necessary?
Fun.
It's fun? What do you think about, do you enjoy connection better when you're on this or in person with your friends?
In person.
Yeah? What do you think, Ms. Saltzman?
I think in person definitely has a lot of virtue to it. I'm glad that you said that, Sophie, because the day and age that we're living in, it's so easy to just get absorbed into our devices, right? You know that. All right, Glenn's in the house.
Glenn. Look at this, we're 6:03. This is a record.
It is.
Get in, Glenn.
It is. Usually you're playing with your tech for a while.
I know we have so much wisdom, but when it comes to this tech, it's redunculous.
I think it's appropriate because this is the episode on connection.
Touche. Touche. What do you think? So, oh, you know what? That's what it was. So in my face. In your face. Hey, Glenn, can you hear us?
I can. I'm trying to get my camera working here. Oh, there it
is.
All right.
Amber, this is a record.
I know it is.
This is a record. We got 6:03.
How the two of you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good.
We are great. Really good to see you again, Glenn. I mean, I saw you this morning virtually.
Oh,
yes, your beautiful message. But since the last time we were able to chime in together, when was that? Like 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So really great to see you.
Now, are you still in England?
Well, no, I'm not. But I have a little surprise for you.
Uh-oh.
I'll be right back. I have to go get it.
All right. So yeah, that was a powerful message today. Last week too, powerful message.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they've been getting stronger and stronger. I think this pandemic does that. I mean, that's kind of the thing on connection. You know what's going on with my son, right?
No.
You didn't know? Okay. Well, we got another guest. So.
Oh wow. How'd you guys do that?
Yeah. It's his new app, or if you want them there bad enough, they just show up.
Hey, well, Vince knows all the latest technology gadgets, so I'm not discounting his belief. He can make you pop there. Oh, so you're here?
Yeah, no, she got here a couple weeks ago, actually.
All right. Are you here to stay?
I'm staying.
All right.
Here's my mic.
So we got Sophie now. She just switched it up. So we're doing all kinds of shenanigans. Well, no. So my son, and I've been real honest about it. He's going to come on the podcast eventually, and when he's back in the hospital now. But he attempted suicide or cried out. about a month ago. So for the past month, it's been, it's been tumultuous. He was in the hospital. He got out not even 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago yesterday.
Wow.
And on Friday, I had an episode with Lisha from Bessel's wife from Body Keeps Score,
Right.
Trauma Research Foundation, and it's a great episode. I was trying to implement some of the things that I was taking from her, and really it's about you don't know what somebody is going through,
Right.
and the lack of connection for him was he doesn't process it like adults process, right? So I mean, and there's adults that aren't processing this well, and I believe I am, but maybe I'm not, but so he was telling the police that when the first time they came that the pandemic's really been playing, and I wasn't hearing it, right? I was thinking he was justifying his bad behavior, but then we got to the hospital and they couldn't find a bed for him. Like, there's no adolescent beds available in Michigan.
Right.
It's a true epidemic right now where, and even Friday, if it wasn't for me calling his doctor who was at the facility and saying, hey, we're back at the ER, and just really advocating for him, he would be stuck in the hospital right now, and so would we until a bed opened up. Right. But that's when it just, so if you got to turn that off, oh no, it's muted. So it kind of just bombarded me that that in my own drive, this visceral drive to protect him from this information that something could be off.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't listening. I wasn't fully present. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that Lisha said is we have to let them know that they're seen, and that comes with connection, truly connecting with the person, and I don't know the inner workings, right? I understand what it is to be bogged down by mental illness and whatever, and have that pattern be prevalent and not be able to see our way out of it. So I know what that is. I don't know what his is, and I don't know what it is to grow up where you're bombarded by social media and these images 24/7 and say you're not good. I don't know that. So initially I was trying to equate my experience with his, and it's not the same. It doesn't matter what I've done to try to break a cycle or whatever. These kids are bombarded, and then you're 12 years old. You hate yourself anyway. You're like, nobody knows what the hell's going on at 12, and everything sucks, and or it's really beautiful and it's up and down and up and down, and like every day is the last day. And when you said, "Oh, I just want to die," I meant it. I didn't do it, but I felt it. So anyway, that's what kind of prompted this, the whole thing that Lisha said with connection, and it's all been connection recently. I walked in the other day, Amber's watching, who was it? TD Jakes. And he has this book that came out called Drop the Mic.
Drop the Mic.
Have you read it?
I have. Yep, I have.
So
I went to the seminar actually.
Are you really?
Yeah, in Atlanta.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's been all connection. How do we connect, and the importance of it? We're in a time where society would like us to feel like it's a luxury to connect, and it's not. It's a necessity, and that's what this whole thing was about. And I know you can speak more on that.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So how's your son doing now, though? If he's
back in the hospital, he's crying out for help.
Yeah.
And he said some things to his therapist Friday that they break confidentiality for two reasons. You're a therapist. And one of them is they say some things that are threatening to themselves, and that's what he did. He said he's thinking about jumping off a building. He's talking like a kid, thinking about jumping off a building, but I thought that'd be a bad idea because I'm a kid. So how do I get to the top of a building? You know what I mean? But it's still very concerning because she's like, he needs 24-hour monitoring. We just can't let these comments go. And that's so we went back to the ER Friday, and he's back in Stonecrest now. I'm gonna shut this door.
Okay. That look really dark. Adjust my light. Do I look dark?
Yeah. It's dark over there.
Dark. Let me adjust it right quick. Just.
Amber, she likes to warm up. You gotta talk to her.
Okay. I tried to remember because I realized my shirt's a little here.
Here.
Okay, buddy. There we go.
I'm trying to get views here. No,
I
okay.
was like, oh, didn't mean for
That's
that.
better.
On display.
A little bit better. A little bit better. Oh man.
There, when you lean in, we see you.
A little more light.
Lean
You
in.
know, the viewers might not.
Yeah,
I
take
mean,
your backlit too, like we are.
Yes. You know, it's interesting. Your son used to, we're climbing a building and, you know, jumping, that whole idea of free fall
I never thought of that.
and wondering, you know, can you trust someone to catch me in that free fall? You know,
That's
that whole, you know, going back to Freud, he talks about how we all have the common experience of falling in our sleep. You know, we see ourselves, you know, falling out of bed, and that whole dynamic, you know, who can I turn to and trust if I do engage myself in a free fall?
that's I never thought of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's you know, when I would give the analogy of what PTSD was like for me, I would say, because I never saw it coming. It was just all of a sudden this, I feel like I would feel crushed, like, and then I just wanted to get out of there. There was no lead in. It was just all of a sudden. And before I knew that that was the feeling that I had to look out for, I would find an escape. And there were some mechanisms in place that I had, but I equated it to standing on the top of I said a 10-story high rise because I had an optional one in downtown. And I remember standing up there and looking out. And it was like standing on top of this building. Even after I had pulled myself out of poverty and I had some successes in life, from an outsider's perspective, things are going pretty good. Why do you do this? Why are you like this? And to me, it was like I'm standing out there looking at the superficial things that I've done and the things I could pat myself on the back for. And I turn around to go inside the building with no indication. It's on fire, the door is blazing, and the fire's right behind me. So I fight, flight, freeze, collapse, and I would always jump off. And some of the things I did were perceivingly suicidal. It was more, I was testing. You know, I was like, I'll take some bumps on the way down, but anything's better than just giving up, you know, kind of thing. And I would go into free fall. That's what these PTSD benders were. It was free fall. I don't know where I'm going to end up, but anything's better than dying. So here I go. You know,
Yeah.
I never heard that, and thank you.
Yeah, no, it's amazing with not to be sexist, but with men, it's amazing when we stand on top of a building and we look down in that mental space. We're wondering too, just how superhuman are we? And a lot of us fantasize as little boys of being a human and a superhero, and we're wondering, you know, if I free fall, you know, will someone catch me? Will I be like Superman and bounce back up?
Can I fly?
Yeah. So it's amazing, but you know, that whole idea of connection ties into this so well, in that we're always constantly wondering, do the people next to us get where we're at? Are they experiencing life through our lenses? And you know, you can be, you know, married to someone, you know, have a significant other, you know, best friends with someone, family member, and you still get a sense that they don't understand me. They don't understand who I am and what I'm going through. That's
what I'm getting with Vinny is, and that's what's so painful, is that, you know, he wants to defend his diagnoses, right? So there was a 180 turn in his behavior. The thoughts that were exacerbated, and it may have had something to do with the meds they put him on. It probably did, to be honest, but they're going to figure that out. And I'm doing my best to listen and be a student right now. But the most painful thing is, I'll tell him, Vinny, I don't, you know, at first I was business as usual as a parent, right? I'm trying to, and then he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. So I'm like, okay, so that doesn't work because he can't control these impulses. So I got to switch everything up. But then as he got out of the hospital, they put this, he's a kid. He says things, homicidal thoughts. What are those, Vinny? What are your homicidal thoughts? Well, I get angry. That's not homicidal thoughts. Homicidal thoughts do not leave you. And I'm trying to have conversation. I'm like, so you're in the same way where if somebody cut me off in traffic 10 years ago, I might say, I want to kill them. You know what I mean? I don't really want to kill the person, and I'm not going to chase them down and kill them.
Yeah.
But for the moment, kind of like, oh, I'd just rather not be here. Those are different than these lingering thoughts. And I'm trying to tell them, like, that's not a homicidal thought. That's just a brash reaction to a situation. So if you're going in there and you're telling them that you're having these thoughts, because I saw what he talks about online, so I went down and I'm like, oh my God, these kids are just they hear these things, these terms, these homicidal thought, nihilistic. That I see him when he didn't know nihilistic before I told him what that meant. Then I saw him using it when he was talking to the therapist. I'm like, oh my God. So all they can do as therapists is they got to take it in, right? They're not there to discern what it's just he's saying this. And so they put this psychotic on his diagnosis, psychotic tendencies on his general anxiety disorder. And he seems to be emulating that ever since he got out. So and I don't know what's what. So I'll tell him, I don't know what's going on in your head, but I know it's real. Like I'm not telling you it's not real. I'm telling you, I can only tell you what I see outside in reality. And I see a lot of people that love you and that are supporting you and really much, because he'll argue, nobody loves me. I'm not good. Like, that's the thing that really concerned the therapist. I'm not good enough to be here. I'm no good. I'm thinking, where do these thoughts come from? He has the whole world at his fingertips. They can come from anywhere. And yeah, so the painful part is I can't convince him that he's loved. That's the real hard. As much as I try, I haven't found that angle yet. Whatever that angle is, and it can't be letting him listen to a band called Cannibal Corpse. You know what I mean? Like that, because he was trying to manipulate the therapist with that, saying, no, you're talking about these thoughts and we're Cannibal Corpse. No, that's not the thing. I'm not sorry. I'm still your dad. So anyway, that's hard. I've never felt that kind of pain, really, is when you look at your son who says he doesn't want to be here, and then you can't convince him that he's loved. It's tough.
Right. So now, does he know he's being diagnosed with these things, or it's just between you and the? No,
it's public. He can access it all. So, yeah, he knew, and he leans on a couple, and he likes. I don't want to say he likes, subconsciously, there's something in him that's guiding him to depression, general anxiety disorder, and the psychotic tendencies. There's some kind of glory there in his subconscious. I don't know what it is. He kind of skirts around the autism thing, but unless it's beneficial to him. I know my rights. That's what he's been saying that ever since he got out of the hospital. I know my rights. I told his mom, this is where I had to pick him up last Thursday. He said, I don't have to wear a white shirt, or I can wear a white shirt at dinner. I know my rights. And she's like, no, that's your school. You wear a uniform, go change. Your grandparents are coming over. I know my rights. You're trying, you know what I mean? So different kid, different kid with still the same Vinny, but then when he comes out of whatever the heat of the moment is, I told him, I'm like, you can't act psychotic. He cut his finger and wrote on blood on his mom's wall after the hospital. Never happened. I said, you can't do that. I said, look, and maybe I was wrong in saying this. And I've said it publicly. I'll say it again. I said, if number one, the police know, they came, and you have to listen when people are doing that. You crossed a line now from people being concerned about you to this psychotic thing. You can't do that. You're not allowed. The world doesn't care that you're mentally whatever. It doesn't care. Like, I care, but I'm also your dad. So I have to create this. I got to let you know where the boundaries are. And I said, if you ever do that again, to where your mom can't sleep at night or your sister can't sleep at night, and I can't sleep at night, and I got to come check, like, you might want to consider the alternative. That might have been wrong to say, but at the same time, it's like, this is the line. You can't hurt other people. You can't hurt yourself either, but you definitely can't scare other people with this. And then it was a breaking point for him, because there was a connection there, right? The wall dropped. He said, I don't want to hurt anybody. I said, well, people who speak like that, they hurt animals, and then it leads to this and it leads to that. I would never hurt an animal. And then I saw Vinny. Vinny came back, in that moment. So I don't think it was wrong. It doesn't feel right, but at the same time, it created a connection, and then we were able to have a real conversation for a brief moment, it wasn't too long, but anyway, I don't want to take up the whole thing with this, but that's where this all came from.
That's interesting though, Yeah.
there was a therapist when I was 15, and I'm sorry, his name was Mark Lois, and he wound up getting fired after I left Camp Oakland. He saved my life. And, you know, I went in there and I was perpetuating narcissism. I wasn't narcissistic, but I was saying these things because I felt like shit about myself, talking about how good looking I was and how I was this and how I was that. I was none of that. And then he said, look, motherfucker, excuse my language, but he sat down and he leveled with me. My first day there, I was throwing pool balls at the big guy because he came up and he got in my face, and I just started, you know, going off on these 5 guys in the pool room. And that was my first day, and they had to restrain me and hold me down. And so I came in as a problem. And probably a week into it, he pulled me in his office and he said, what I just said. He said, your ears are jacked up. He said, you've got gap teeth. He said, you blah, blah, blah. And he started telling he's like, I know you're not narcissistic. I know you're not a sociopath, and I know you care. And he's like, and we're gonna get to the bottom of you. What if it kills me? You know, the kind of thing. And then it broke me down because I started thinking about all these things, and there was some truth in what he was saying, and I knew it deep down. On the surface, I didn't. And then he took me and 3 other guys that showed promise to the pool hall. Not allowed to do that. You can't do that, but he did. And it created this relationship that carried me through my 2 years at Camp Oakland, and it changed me. That's where I started wanting to learn what compassion was. I was never taught what compassion was. It was, you know what I mean? It was just survival, survival, survival. So there is some benefit to seeing a person where they are in that moment and being able to navigate that space. And I think I did that with Vinny. At least I want to believe I did. I don't know. We'll see. But
you know, it's always amazing because it's something that people get out of behavior that they exhibit that we call, you know, abnormal. We want to label it. And so it's interesting, even when he, you know, cuts himself, you know, it's just like, okay, what do you get out of there? What's the value of that? Not putting a label on is right or wrong, but what's the value you get out of it, the relief that you get out of it? You know?
yeah.
I think that's the tough part is, you know, demonstrating to him that you accept him as is, and there's nothing wrong with you, but I've got to get inside of you and be able to live in your world with you.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah,
help
let's
navigate it.
throw it at, give it to me. I can take it. It was really, I got down in his eyes and I said these things, and I could see he changed. Like I know, I pay attention to the eyes, you know, that's the thing is, and I know, and I can feel when a person, when somebody's eyes go dark, I can feel it. Like if I go back to any moment where I lost it in time and I was conscious of it, not at the time, but I can feel like this almost rolling, like there's a sensation of just like like something leaves my body. So I guess that's probably the blood going back into the you know, the amygdala, and then back into the monkey mind, and just going offline. Like it's going offline. I know that, and I can see it. I saw it in Floyd. I saw it when after they knocked on the door with the gun, he turned around smiling, and then he said, well, then he saw the gun, and I saw him like, oh, he's not even there anymore. He just left, you know.
Wow. So you got a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, why should I not though, right? Like that. I just keep trying to say this. If I thought my kids were going to get out unscathed, you know what I mean? Like that's delusional. Yeah. And the way I look at it is, it was in my 30s where I finally started evaluating myself, because I'd been in controlling, you know, out of fear, controlling, egotistical, asshole, you know, to protect myself. I created this little bubble, and it wasn't until I started abusing myself enough to where it became on the surface, to where other people start, oh, you know, you can't do that. Right. Then I started thinking, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm not, you know what I mean? So maybe he doesn't have to go through that now. Like that's kind of, you know, when we go through these things, they're our superpower. If we can take the lesson and we can evolve past it, they become our superpowers. So he might have got his superpower, his cape early, you know, and I think we'll see our way through it. I believe we will. I believe we will.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we pray so.
It's hard to say if this is true or not, based off of Vinny's story in particular, but the different things like what you're saying, you discovered in Discord, and part of me feels like there is just a seeking for significance. What, like I'm saying in general, for young people these days, with all of our access online, all of our different personas we can take on and experiment with, and people we can interact with and not know them in their entirety whatsoever. I mean, who knows who he's communicating with, and using him only as an example, I mean, all of us, right? So it's like this sort of fragmented connection that we get to have with people. And if we're at a developmental stage where we're taking in all this information that is not connected to where we actually are developmentally, like if we're looking for significance, which I think is about right for his age, that's when you start to really need to differentiate, right?
Mhm.
And you would know better, Glenn, but I mean, I see it with my own daughter too. I think you start seeing that at that age more so than ever, but they're pulling on so much more information that isn't necessarily going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like I feel like there's an opportunity for, I don't want to say false symptoms, but new things to be expressed, certainly that wouldn't necessarily have been expressed otherwise. I don't know, but it's definitely concerning. On the flip side of connection, we have this connection that was made, right? So I feel like it's really easy for us to get into an either or conversation, like real life versus virtual life, and then depending on the conversation, virtual can sort of be demonized as, you know, fragmented, not real, sketchy, what have you. Or it could be amazing. It could be an opportunity for you to show up as your authentic self. And back to what you said earlier, Glenn, it's like maybe the person who is in the same room as you is a complete stranger, and yet you connect amazingly with someone who's halfway across the world. If you're showing up fully and you being able to be seen fully, which was the case with us.
The ability to discern is so important, and kids don't possess that. They don't, and people, like I did with Vinny before I knew the spectrum, I treated them like any other kid who could control their impulses and should be, you know, how bad that is. It should be this, should be that. In my shoulds, I couldn't see what was, because it's so high functioning, you know. Unless you're a trained therapist who does that every day and sees him every day, probably you might say, at first they wanted to say ADHD, you know, that was the go-to, ADD or ADHD, and his doctor said he's not ADD or ADHD. I'm not giving him medication for that. And he did grow out of it. Then the pandemic hit, and the combination of hormones, I guess, and you know, this is what I've been reading and hearing, is the combination of hormones and being pulled out of the only thing you knew, like that was your life. Yeah. So the kid who shot himself over the hockey thing, I don't know if you read about that, but hockey got pulled away at 14 years old, shot himself. It was the second year in a row. That was his love. That was his love, period. There was nothing else so there's other things going on, right? But I mean, everything that you've built your identity on, and you don't know that it's bad to build your identity on anything. Like you're taught that get good grades, be good in sports, you know, the things you're taught. And then it gets pulled out from under you, and that's all you had. I didn't think about it, and now that's all I think about is like, man, what the kids must be going through. It's hard enough for adults, but what the kids must be going through is just well, I know firsthand experience. I got a taste of what it is, and then, but on the flip side, you know what I mean? Like the universe is God's always trying to drop these, you know, these opposites, you know. Don't go thinking, don't go demonizing this because this, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Pay attention. It's more gray than it is black and white, you know, and that's what this whole thing's about, the human condition, breaking through semantics, having conversations that are open without agenda, and just trying to tear down those walls, those artificial walls that we create in our religions and our races and our nationalities and like all these things that we put up between us, which really aren't even real. I keep getting this lesson that none of it's real. None of it's real. Quit believing the bullshit. You know what I mean? Stop. Just stop it. Stop it and just go. Move forward. Keep moving forward, and and take it all in, and accept it, and then if you want to change it, move. Just move, keep moving.
It's amazing how, society has changed. When I first was raised, we had 3 or 4 TV channels. Yeah, now you have about 700. And so you tune into what validates you. And I think we see that in the social media platforms. People tuned in, expressing themselves to an audience that really coddles them. It really doesn't force you to really look inside, grow and develop. And unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, a lot of people did have their value system based on, the job, career, and the things that they did. And now when you come into a pandemic, it says, stand still.
Yeah.
You have this opportunity to look and look and look, and you don't want to because you never have, and it's scary to really get along with yourself and say, who am I? Minus the job and the ability to be mobile and run away from things, which most of us do. We stay busy. It's a runaway from ourselves, and having to sit down alone in quiet time and really reflect on who we are and where we're going in life. Do we really have a roadmap to our next stage of divine purpose?
I thought I did, and that's how it works. Like when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Because I always think I'm pretty good, and I can always look back in my past, and I don't have much of a metric. Like I'm definitely better than where I came from. You know what I mean? Like by leaps and bounds. But as an actor, I always shied away from the Marlon Brando and Streetcar Named Stella. That big.
Right.
Like I'm like, nah, nobody fucking does that in real life. You know what I mean? That's bull. Nobody really. No, you don't fall to your knees and cry. And when I dropped Vinny off at the hospital the first time, I heard that, well, you can't visit your son. That's salt in the wounds, So I kind of drove home in this catatonic state, and I got downstairs. And I just started busying myself immediately. I did do laundry, but some of the laundry was in Vinny's room. And I got in his room, and I just collapsed. Like that's never happened in my life. Like the weight went out from under my legs, and I just found myself on the floor, and all I could do was wail. Like it was like Brando. That's what I'm glad that I'm able to objectively step outside of myself and observe how these things, and that comes from cognitive processing therapy, being on the other side of this pattern, and everything else, and unity and all the messages, and like it allows me to look at myself that way. But like I would have never felt that 2 years ago. I wouldn't have felt that because I was robotically able. I would have started seeking the out. I would have felt that coming subconsciously. So it was a beautiful thing that I was able to actually feel, because I've never felt that in my life, that kind of emotion, and I've never been able to express that. And it was just to myself. And now I'm talking about it, which I never would have done years ago. I never admitted that ever. But the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it knows what you need when you need it, and it delivers it to you, and it always lets you know that you got more. Right. You got more, and in a kid, how do you convince them? Like I know how I need to convince, and I hope he don't need that. Like I'm hoping he don't need that, because that's a rough road. Like I don't want, but it's going to be what it's going to be, I guess. For all of us. And the thing we lack, we're more connected. Who said that? We're more connected than ever, but we
Brene Brown.
Was that Brene? Yeah, we're more connected than ever, but we don't know how to connect. And what T.D. Jakes was talking about was
we're not listening.
Not listening.
And this goes into all the social spaces and everything, where we have all these platforms, all these tools. You read the book, so where we can project anything we want out into the world, but nobody's listening. I mean, you're following, you're liking.
Right.
Is that need to feel heard actually being met across that line? And I think it's not in many cases, unless I mean, unless you're truly connecting, but how many of those hundreds of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers are you truly connecting with? I don't know what the stats are exactly, but I think young professional YouTubers have a really high suicide rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're constantly chasing that, and I don't know if that's connected to what I was saying before in terms of like significance, but just in general, the need. If you decide that that's going to be your work now, which back to what you said earlier,
And that's your
your
identity.
and your livelihood, and because it's usually it's content, it's documented content about your life or about things you're doing, so you're constantly having to create yourself around the content that you want to put out versus just having yourself. And if you start that, I think very young, the lines between your identity, your natural identity, and the identity that you want to project. So maybe there's parts of the self at a young age that are just not being developed at all.
You can probably speak on that.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing how, you know, when you talk about the Amber, it's there's a shift, you know, right around the 70s where we had these common values, you know, and I don't know if they were right or wrong, but we had values, you know, and everyone learned those values, you know, in the household, and then, you know, K through 6, you learned those values. And one of the values was hard work, being respectful, being mindful of others. And then all of a sudden it shifted around the 80s. And it was like everybody's out for self-development, self-improvement, self-agenda. And I think what it's done is shifted the mindset of people from being open to learning to I'm going down my own lane, my own street. But what happens with that, you're formulating your own agenda without all the tools and experiences and the knowledge and skills that you need. And so many people now are going down that one lane highway of self, and they're hitting a dead end, you know, and then they're wondering, what do I do? And there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of panic, you know, and people feel like, okay, I'm disconnected. And how did I get here? You know, and so, you know, I see a lot of people now who, you know, they read all the self-help books in the world, and they're just as lost, you know, as ever, because they're not saying, okay, with open mind, like you're saying, like T.D. Jakes was saying, is that, and Brene Brown's, that we are mistakenly so connected by tools, but not by mind. You know, this whole idea of like-mindedness or mindfulness is not present. And so, you know, even in T.D. Jakes' book, what he was saying is that we're not communicating because we're not listening. What we're doing is evaluating the speaker. So we counter what they say or piggyback on what they say, but we're always constantly in this state of evaluating this, as opposed to being open and receptive to just learning, taking it all in and learning, so you can really expand your mind.
Yeah.
I haven't read that book yet, but I was listening to the impact theory interview with him yesterday, which is why we started talking about it. And another thing that I gathered from the interview, that I think is probably in the book, this idea of don't drop the mic, because I think the sense of responsibility that we have now to bring, and you said something about this earlier today as well, in terms of your accumulated experiences coming with you into your space and launching from there.
Yeah.
There is a responsibility that we have now with all that we know to create something that is not as chaotic maybe as we're seeing, that's actually feeding into our human and biological needs, which do include energy and connection, physical touch, and I mean, not everyone has the same needs for those things, but we are human, and we need our serotonin levels up, we need cortisol down, we need things that are going to make us feel good and vibrant as human beings. And if we're not conditioning how we navigate the virtual space around those needs, then we're going to keep missing the mark.
Exactly. You know, because I would think that the pandemic was a chance to, you know, get in that still sacred space and really this all the accumulated experiences, knowledge, skills that you have, really lay them out in front of you mentally, not necessarily physically, but mentally, just lay them out in front of you and say, moving forward, this is what I need to launch the next stage of my development, my spirituality, my divinity. And these are some things that I no longer need. But you see people still hanging on to everything. It's I want to just keep everything.
Yeah.
And it's not a healthy space to be.
I see people falling by the wayside left and right. And I'll have conversation in business, and everything. Like there's pre-pandemic, there's post. If you're stuck in pre-pandemic, no matter what you think this thing happened for, no matter if there's a conspiracy theory or it just happened or no matter what, it happened. So, and it changed everything. So, I'm grateful because I don't know that I'd be here had I not had the tools that I had to work with at the time. I might have been very much like Vinny and just wanting to get out of here and not knowing how, and then I would have found a way one way or the other. So I don't know that I'm just grateful that when it came, I had the tools, and that's part of the reason for this. If I had the wherewithal in me to deny everything she was saying and was happening, I would have back then. Like I would, because it felt too. It was threatening that oh no, she knows way too much about me without knowing me, and I'm feeling vulnerable, and I got to get the hell out of here. And and even in that space to be able to try to pick things apart. When I know consciously, I'm like, that's stupid. Why are you even, you know what I mean? Like, I know better, but still subconsciously, there's a drive to protect.
Mm-hmm.
And in that space, because I had the tools, I was able to say, come on, man. Like I could look at the things and say, she's reciting your poetry that you haven't looked at in 16 years by not reciting it, but it's just coming out in her sentences. Like I had the time I wasn't caught in the physical space of having to impress with the date, you know what I mean? Or all we could do was talk, and we could figure out like real quick, there's nothing left to talk about. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing left to talk about, so we'll just stop. You know what I mean? Like, so it was hugely beneficial because if it weren't for the pandemic, I don't know that in physical space, I would have been, I would have had the wherewithal to navigate around what I'm realizing are still very, they're not prevalent, but they're there. These visceral drives to protect myself from things that I don't need protection from anymore. I'm trying to figure out where Vinny's come from, but I guess it doesn't take rocket science to say like he's got way more than everybody in his house as an influence, in his mom's house, and his grandma, and his grandpa, and just his schoolmates. Like they got a world of information that we could have never. I remember having to wait for the answering machine, and coming home and checking that, and then if they didn't reach you, they just didn't reach you, or it might take 2 days to give a call back, or whatever the case was. Like there was space,
right? There
was space, and I'm not saying that I think it's better that we're evolving, but with that evolution comes some disruption. Like with growth. I mean, with growth comes resistance. You gotta persevere through the resistance. It's like working out. Like we're tearing our muscles right now, and it sucks that I'm not trying to make this about me because he's tearing his muscles too. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to. Like he doesn't want to, and he doesn't know that this could be good for him. He just knows where he is right now. But it's I just posted something today because it was funny. It was this little kid, and he's crying and saying, what was he saying? Did you see it?
I'm tired of things that are
that don't kill me but make me stronger.
I'm done with this.
That's funny because I always ask people, when I'm, working with, people, clients, I ask, it's not good, it's not bad, it's what am I supposed to get out of this experience, and look at it from that perspective. What am I supposed to get out of this experience that helps me move forward on the journey? And it's too many people who, based on other people's value, they'll put a label as good or bad on some behavior. You know, I always tell people, you know, I haven't made a mistake in my life, you know, because I was just practicing.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you know, I crossed over and realized I can put this thing together, piecemeal life together. But it's not a need any longer to get in, to fit in with anyone else. We're all on our own path, and the people that come in contact with us are divinely sent to help us, you know, not oppose us. And so it's out of love that we enter these relationships. And when people challenge our perspective, that's the real chance to sit back, listen, and learn. You know, it's the real opportunity that we're missing from this journey. You know, and I would say, you know, we're inundated with information again, to where we're not setting parameters for ourselves as to, okay, I'm going to have some downtime where I shut down all technology and say, this is my time to be with me. I don't know too many people that I come across and I ask them, you know, how many hours a day do you set aside, you know, for just you? You know, no social media, you know, no cell phone, you know, just you. And most people can't answer that question in a firm way that I put aside, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours a day where I just simply unplug and make myself unavailable.
I do it in ways that aren't healthy all the time. You know, I'll disconnect, but it's usually F this person. I don't need to take that call. You know, it doesn't have to be like that. I can just not take the call, and I can set that time aside. And that's something I'm working on. Is what Lisha said is, you know, Lou Burkholz.
Mm-hmm.
So he was at one of their conferences. And he works with the Trauma Research Foundation, and he did this study. Well, you're probably familiar with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was talking about how it was during, I think they were refugees, and there was this one worker who would come down, and rather than hang out with the rest of the camp counselors or whatever they were called, I'm using my experience. They're probably not camp counselors at a refugee camp, but he would come down and he would sit with the kids and talk to them, go from cot to cot to cot to cot, and tell them how they're seen and how their dreams matter and blah, blah, blah. And it made a difference. It made a huge difference. They started having aspirations, and so just Alicia said, look, have dinner. Like, people don't even take that. And I said, and I'm guilty of that, of not sitting down and eating dinner. And even if they are obnoxious, which, you know, we've seen that, even if they're being obnoxious, you're still syncing up. That's what she said. You're in that moment, you're syncing up, pushing the rest of the world out. And in that moment, it's no TV, it's no, even if it's only that, it's a way to sync up. And we miss syncing up all the time. And don't mean to point my finger and put my experience on everybody else out there, because there's probably some people listening that do sync up.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've been guilty of not syncing up, and I know that's something I have to strive towards now. And it's easy. It's not that difficult. Like, it's really not. Like, to take an hour from your phone, if you can't do that, I don't know what. And I'm talking to myself right now. You know what I mean? I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to anybody else. But if you can't do that, or if I can't do that, there's something wrong with what I'm doing. Yeah. 100%. Like, there's no getting around it.
But going back to that idea of trauma, aren't we in a trauma addicted society?
Well, I don't know that we're addicted to it. I mean, it's a traumatic society. Trauma is prevalent. You know, but my idea of trauma is not the same as what most people's would be. It's that trauma is resistance. That's all trauma is to me. Our ability to process through the trauma, well, that gets broken at a younger age, from, you know, 3rd trimester till 3. So,
but if the goal is to become trauma free, and we're constantly feeding ourselves traumatic experiences daily,
daily.
Doses and doses, teaspoons and tablespoons of it through our music, television,
Work.
social media, constantly. It's trauma.
Mhm.
You know, we thrive on trauma. You look at the primetime TV now. What is it? Trauma filled.
24-hour news cycle. What the hell? Who watches news 24 hours a day? Like,
Yeah.
when did that happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, we give you, we start at 6 o'clock. We give you some traumatic news.
Yeah.
Then we go into prime time. If it's not traumatic, it's not going to make the ratings. And then we come back at 11 o'clock and give you some more trauma.
Put you to bed with it now. And
Yeah.
you watch it. Yeah, you're right. We're addicted. You know, we keep going back to it because that's home for us.
And I know most people, you know, they say, well, I can't go to bed till I see the news. Why?
Yeah.
I want to hear the breaking news story that's going to bring me trauma.
I need that feedback loop when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Inform your dreams with nightmares.
So this person shot and this bad thing happened and this bad thing happened. Oh, and let's argue about some politics while you're on here. And you know, yeah, no, it is trauma addicted, and it's not invented. They're just playing off something that's very innate. You know, it's inherent in what, you know, me and you might just, it's the duality of being human. It's that illusion that we're not one. It's that separateness. In our separateness, I think it does help to create some identity, no matter how, if you feel useless in life, like if you just don't do anything, you can feel moments of connection in that trauma, because you can point at the train. That's why people like train wrecks. You can point at a show like Honey Boo Boo, or you can point at these things and laugh and make fun and do nothing yourself, you know, and people do that. But in that moment, you get that serotonin or that dopamine boost, and then you feel like, well, I'm not that bad, you know, and you can live like that, because binge watching Netflix on these reality shows ain't gonna kill you. And if you're going to work and paying your bills, you're like Milton in Office Space. You're going there, you're paying the bills, you're coming home, and you might not really have a relationship with your wife or your husband or your kids or whatever, but the bills are paid. You know what I mean? And in society, that's important. And, you know, and there's some cars out there and whatever. You can live your entire life. That's why I look at when, you know, Vinny, the fact that he has to deal with this so young, and he has people that aren't saying it's in your head, get over it. I look at it as he's being primed for to be a superhero. You know, like, and any other kid that's going through it right now, just hopefully we know what the possibilities are. And that's the scary part. Is Alicia said it. She said, kids do dumb things that you can't control. They might, the most well-adjusted teenager is going to roll their eyes at you, slam the door in your face, and just treat you like you're a burden to them when you're doing everything for them. But no, I don't have time for you. So she's like, you have to be present in those moments. Even she said, it's just what being a parent is. This is training. It's what it is. It's training. It's, if we ever want to touch Christ consciousness, look what he had to go through. You know, like this. I'm thinking, I'm having epiphanies as we speak about it.
Well, and maybe there's something to be said with all of, I don't know what the percentages are, but the youth being more visibly troubled now than ever before, and able to be diagnosed and helped and even just seen. Maybe it's really just that many more people who aren't going through 10, 15, 20 extra years, or maybe even a lifetime of hurt and pain. Maybe he's gonna, get out of it sooner because it's being exposed quicker.
We are more equipped. People know more. They definitely know more. And I keep going back to this because this is my experience. This is what I know. But I tell them, like, you don't know how many people are praying for you at church. You know, we're a different mindset at Unity. Like we don't get bogged down by those things. And we don't power through either. I don't like to use the word power through anymore, because power through means plow over, go through, don't pay attention, drop the mic. You know what I mean? Like that's glorified. I used to always say power through. How about you navigate? Navigate through it, because if you power through, you're going to miss some jewels. You're going to leave some things behind that have great value. And I think if you want the tools that are available through this thing, this mechanism, if it weren't for this mechanism, we didn't meet. But I also don't know who Greg Braden is. I also don't know who Bruce Lipton is. I also don't know quantum physics. That wasn't taught to me. It's something I got real curious about, and I had to, at the age of 30, 29, 30, I'm like, oh wow, what's that? And it's because of this. I wasn't in an environment. I was running drugs. I was an actor out in Hollywood, and I was running drugs from Mexico to Detroit, marijuana. That was my life. Yet I'm on the internet learning about Bruce Lipton and molecular biology and how that applies to epigenetics and you know what I mean? So I'm getting fed at the same time with information I really want, and I'm out there living life, in survival mode. So when people try to demonize this thing, I get it. There's negative out there, but it's like the world, and it's like what I'm trying to do with Vinny. Like the world don't care, man. It's not gonna conform to the fact that you got something going on. It doesn't care. It's moving fast. It wants you to move fast too, and it's gonna drag you or suck you one way or the other. It does not care. The people that care are here. They're in the church. These are the people. So try to take as much as you can from that, because the world, it's like Russell Brand said, the spiritual life, it's like throwing a rowboat away from a waterfall. You can do it, but you have to be privy to, when you pull that paddle out to take that rest, there's a force that's going to try to pull you back. It's not bad. It's just there. And if you're not aware of it, well, it's going to take you. And what I'm seeing with the kids, with Vinny especially, is that this nihilistic, it's nothingness of life. It's so, I don't know why it's so attractive. Maybe because I don't know. I don't know. I have to think on that. It's very attractive to, well, if you want the earth to be flat, that's attractive too. And you'll find those people. That's what I told Vinny. I'm like, if you want the earth to be flat, Google it. You're going to find people. They're going to give you some papers from somewhere that seem pretty intelligent, and you can believe it. And you're going to have people around you going, yeah, no, it's definitely flat, man. I don't care what those shadows say or put a stick. That's all nonsense because there's a dome over here, and you know what I mean? They're there. No matter what, like you said, you want your people, it's fragmented. You can find the people that are sick. You want QAnon? You got it. You know what I mean? Like all that's true as much as you want it to be. That's the scary part, is that if we're not I just had another epiphany. You got to teach discernment.
Yeah.
At such a young age now, you have to give them, you can't shield them, but you can try to implement the ability to discern at a very young age. And what is it? Eight is great. Like they don't even have forethought until roughly eight years old. So it's like they're programmed. They're being programmed. And you're like, God damn it.
Yeah, but they're already on devices where they're getting
right.
Even earlier than 8, bombarded with information that is not being, in many cases. I mean, even if when you have child controls and everything like that, I mean, there's just anything can appear. I mean, I used to watch My Little Pony on YouTube, and there's a whole brony contingent of the fan base, and all kinds of interesting fan art that pops up if you're watching My Little Pony on YouTube that has nothing to do with what I wanted to show my little girl.
So Sophie said one day, she says, this is when I blocked all their stuff, and I got the family app on my phone. But there were two things. So one time Sophie says, show me a dog peeing on a tree. She thinks it's funny. Boyfriend pees on girlfriend shows up. It didn't. That was the first thing that she spoke it. I was like, give me that. But that was the first thing to pop up. And then there was one time where I grabbed Vinny's tablet and I'm clearing out the history. He's probably 8 at this time, 7, and I get to one page and I'm like, what the? It was transsexual porn. It was a porn page. I think it was one of the free ones, and I'm like, I don't know what. And so I go to the next thing, Transformers. So he was trying to get to Transformers, and it filled in the blanks for him, and it took him to a place to where we've never talked about it. So I don't know if he's scarred, because I mean those images will confuse you real quick, right. But but then after that, I put the family app on, and then I always felt guilty, like, oh, I'm being too strict, and that's not. No, that's not being too strict. I don't think we can be strict enough when it comes to filtering the information they have access to, like that.
Because even in the best case scenario where they have amazing discernment, things just like you said, they literally just coming. It's not like you pick everything. The algorithm will just feed you the next thing, or like you said, fill in the gap when you're doing the search. And
it does.
It really does. It really does do that. So I think just discernment is one huge part of it, which even many adults, we have terrible discernment. And depending on our situation, are the lessons that we've had the opportunity to learn in life. But what else do we need to do besides, I mean, having some way to enforce control over the content that comes through. Okay, that's one solution that we've come up with. Another would be teaching.
Even that's tough, though. You know how much.
Yeah,
there's so much information.
Impossible. You can limit, but and then the other thing that is, and this goes back to the original sort of topic of this, which is connection. It's not all about just the content. That's one problem that can be worked with, navigated, but it's what are the conversations that are happening between me and my peers at whatever age, and if even if I have a perfect discernment, perfect, family life, I feel completely loved and seen, and all of the things, whatever that perfect life supposedly looks like, but the kids I'm talking to don't have those same rules around, what is kind, what is not kind, and I mean that's discernment too, right? Not every household has those same boundaries.
Yeah.
I can speak on that because so at 12, my stepdad came into the picture, and it was probably a little. So my dad was gone at 8 or 9, and then he came in maybe around 11. So there were 2 years roughly where I was the man of the house at 8, 9, 10, by default, and I was the oldest of the siblings and my cousin, and we moved to Hazel Park. Hazel Park's not an easy area. It provided new challenges for me growing up in Detroit, coming over into this all white neighborhood that was just on the border of Detroit. So there was it's where I saw the difference between prejudice, right, and real racism. Like I saw the difference. There was a hate, there was a superiority thing that was going on there. And this is all in hindsight, but I was fighting all the time because I quote unquote talked black, right? So so I'm over here and my stepdad, he's a pacifist to a certain degree, but at the same time he'll die for his loved ones, right? So he's trying to not impose. He gets, my mom, who's she's got 2 badass kids that were abused. Me, Tony, he got verbal. He saw it, but and her. So coming into this tumultuous situation where the guy had literally broke into the house and tried to kill her, and I had to sneak out the bathroom window and have the neighbors call the cops. So he comes in as a rock star. So he's in a rock band, and his band's on the upswing, and now he's got to try to navigate these waters, and he was somewhat abandoned from his father as a kid, and so there's all these things going on, and he's just trying to be the best voice he can to a kid that doesn't want to listen because, well, I got to fight every day, and if you're not telling me to go out there and kick people's asses like my biological dad did, it's not something I can listen to. That's when gangster rap. And my friend came back from Oakland, California, and he came with EPMD, NWA, Eazy-E cassettes, and I was hooked. Like that became my father figure. From that point forward, oh, it's okay to be poor, but here's how not to be. I can sell drugs. You know what I mean? Like it was, they weren't glorifying. They were speaking on what they saw and what they knew. But as a kid who didn't have the ability, I said, okay, well, I don't have to be poor, but even if I am, fuck you. Excuse my language, but you know what I mean? Like that became my father figure. Gangster rap became my father figure because I rejected the one. And now raising Vinny, all the lessons I got from him were the ones that mattered, right? But back then when I was having to throw hands every day, I was looking for something else and I found it. And they would, I remember him, he would ruin the cassettes, he would rip them up, and my mom would, and break them. And then I'd just go record them, like put them in and do the record thing with something. Kids are gonna find, you can't, especially when you're in survival like they were,
Right.
you don't have 24 hours a day to watch your kids. They're gonna go, that's what Alicia was saying, they're gonna go do stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, like, not everybody is, you know what I mean? Like, you got that one charismatic person out there that's cool and gets the girls and all that kind of stuff. The older one, oh no, I want to be like that, and then you latch onto it.
Well, and now that's taking place in another space, in the virtual space, and the Discord channels, and
every day,
WhatsApp groups, and kids telling each other to kill themselves.
24 hours a day,
daring them to do nonsensical stuff.
Eat Tide Pods. Like, that didn't happen when we were kids. We would jump off a roof.
Right.
We would throw rocks at each other. Like, we did stupid stuff, but
yeah,
we weren't eating Tide Pods. And and if we did, that wasn't going nationwide. We were just stupid kids.
It was
that
a one-off thing. It wasn't a challenge that now hundreds of thousands of kids are doing.
It's so important, that we look at how we role model life. Not just as, parents or guardians, but how we role model life and how to live life. And there's so many kids who feel the vibration that my mom or dad is not happy. And they watch their mood swing up and down, all around. They take in that vibrational force, that energy. And so we may think we're effectively parenting and role modeling, but they see us in our downtime from that. When they're not, watching us, or we think they're not watching us, they're watching us. They're watching us, or we're traveling, they're traveling with us and we're on the cell phone. They listen to the language we use, the demeanor, all those kind of things. And it shows how we're navigating life. Is it out of love that we're navigating life? Is it aggression that we're navigating it? Out of hatred are we navigating life? And they pick up on that. It's that whole dichotomy. As I said before, most parents, and guardians, they live by this doctrine of do as I say, not as I do. And that doesn't bode well. It doesn't equate right for the kid. So you're telling me you can, scream, holler, and everything else inappropriate, but I can't. So when I'm away from you, I'm going to take your lead because you're supposed to be my hero. And so around those, I'm going to act like you. And so that's what we see a lot playing out in our society. And, parents call to school and wonders, well, what's wrong with Johnny? Why is the teacher wondering why is Johnny acting that way? And you're wondering why. Well, it's a chip off the old block. But it's hard for us to see and admit that.
It is.
Yeah, it's a tough part. It's not too many people who, demonstrate balance spiritually, mentally, physically, a balance on a daily basis, and that's supposed to be the thing that we wake up every day striving for. Because when we strike that balance, we approach everything out of the spirit of love, that conviction of love. Most people don't. They race out of bed and they're running into life. And they let life happen to them and they appear to be powerless. And so, when I'm talking to people, if you want to make a change, it's got to be a radical change.
Yeah.
It's got to be radical. It can't be, I'm just going to fit in, everybody else change a little bit here. It's got to be radical. And the thing about Jesus, you mentioned Jesus. Jesus was a radical.
Yeah.
A radical person that ever walked the earth, and that's what we fail to see in Jesus. He was radical, hated, he was lonely, hated, he was lonely, but he kept moving forward, because I see a divine light. That's the best route to take. And so he was radical. Who would have the opportunity to say, I won't do this anymore, at the point of someone telling you, we're going to crucify you next time? you know, and you've seen people go through a crucifixion, and you have that option, and you say, no, I'm gonna keep on, because I think it's something greater that I'm striving for. And so he was radical.
You know, we were just talking about this today, and me and you have had conversations where, so, well, in Life on Fire, what is it? What's your goal? I want to be able to embody Christ consciousness before I leave this planet. And I don't have a problem with dying if I could, but I wanted to, I've noticed that that's almost an escape, because okay, the world will be better. Can we kill you? Sure. You know what I mean? I really don't there's a fear, because I know it's a matter of a few choices. I understand it. I know that there's a bigger purpose. I'm driven by it. But to walk the path is, I know what that means. I have a good idea. You know what I mean? I have a good idea. If history has proven anything about the people who choose to at that level, well, there's some things you're gonna have to deal with. And there's an innate fear of, even though it's this close, it's within reach, just few choices make a few changes and commit. It's really a commitment. It's just commit to walk that path.
Right.
And I admittedly have not done that, even though I say that's my goal.
Yeah.
It's attainable. It's attainable. You don't, it doesn't take much to be hated by people who want you to be different. You know what I mean? And to latch on to the meek, right? It really doesn't take much. You can do that. Anybody can do that. But there's that fear that I think that's what I battle with daily, and that's what's happening with Vinny. When we get through this, I don't know if you remember, I've always said the worst thing I always try to think of the worst thing that could possibly happen in my life, and that's something bad to my kid. Well, it's not. It's not. I would always say cancer. Well, this is worse. You know, the cancer befalling my kid. Well, now this is the challenge. I didn't step my game up. I talked about it, personally, and I think a lot of us are guilty of this in life. We see things pass us by, and then we get presented with a lesson that's painful. Because, well, we need that lesson, and I see that's what I see right now. Again, not trying to make it about me, but I got to look at my experience, and through, if I can discern what that is, maybe I can be a rock for him. And not letting this, like you said, letting life happen to me too. Right. He has no choice. Mm-hmm. Life is going to happen to him. And if he doesn't have, I go back to the Khalil Gibran poem on children, where it's, you got to say all your job, God studies the bow, he's the archer. He's going to let you go. And he's going to, all you can do is steady the bow. And I know my bow isn't steady yet. I know I'm working towards it. But it's a lot of talk too. There's, and speaking, now I just got to work harder, getting on this with you. I at this moment in time, and Lisha and Amber, and I was like, damn man, I just got to work harder now. It doesn't feel good, but it does, Yeah,
it does. Every choice is a choice, and that's what we keep forgetting. Every choice is a choice. And it leads us down the path, closer to where we want to be, or distance us from that path that we want to be at. And I think that's what we have to continually realize, every day, what's my agenda? Before I get out of bed, what's the agenda that I have? And then have a conversation with yourself, how seriously committed am I? We start talking about, this topic of connectedness. Most people have disconnected themselves because they've been in the rat race going for things that other people said they should have, and in the process of struggling, because it's not a natural, innate thing for them to strive for, they get lost, trying to fit in. And so the whole idea of connectedness and loneliness, the loneliness comes because I've never been authentic to myself. I've never presented my authentic self to others. And so I'm living with a mask on, but I want to be seen. How confusing is that?
That's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with, how we present ourselves to the world, whether it's in real life or virtually. But I think you're both speaking to something that I think is super important, which is congruence. And, you know, what you're saying, not that you don't already, but it's like this is pushing you to the next level of, you know, are you being what you speak, walking the talk? What's that next level of going, you know, further into the fold?
And I knew it was gonna happen. I remember I would talk about it, say every time I try to slack off, I get slapped. God slaps me and says, no, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not gonna kill you. It's gonna feel like it. You're gonna want to die, but let's move it along. You know, when I go into these psychedelic spaces, that's what happens. Like the veil, you know, number one is, why are you being so serious? Like you have this infinite power. What's the problem? And then when I'm there, I can never say what the problem is. I don't have any questions anymore. I'm just part of this thing, you know, I'm one with it, and there's no questions, there's nothing to ask. And then I come back, and then the ego starts coming back in. It's like, oh no, we got to make sense of this. We got to fix this, fix it. The pandemic should have broke me, you know. It just shows that intensity, frequency, duration, well, it's gone to basically this through the work. And it's broken a lot of people, and it should have, right? It's like, how can it not? Like, so it's either you rise to the occasion, or like I said, in business, people are they're disappearing. Like they're making demands that can't be met, and they're just getting left by the way. Oh no, we can't do that for you. That doesn't exist anymore. Bye. You know, not like buy negatively, but like you go find somebody who can, hopefully, but we got to move on. It's, you know, and that's what's happening now. It's in a spiritual context, it's acceptance, right? You got to accept, I can't change this, but I can change my response to it. And with Vinny, that's what I've gotten is, I can't change it. I would love to. But what good would that do? If I could push a button and make that happen, would it be good for me or good for him? Probably not. And that makes me feel better saying that, because I never really thought that until just now through this conversation. But if I'm being honest with myself in this moment, I wouldn't push that button. I'm here to go through this with him. That's comforting to a certain degree.
Well, what do you hope to get out of it if you have to go through it? If you have to.
But I hope that he feels seen like he's never felt seen before. I hope that it pushes me to that next level of empathy, of seeking to understand, which I say a lot, but through him, it's like, okay, well, maybe that doesn't apply to the ones I love most, right? So here's the next level. Like, no, it applies to everybody. This is an everybody thing. And you don't know as much as you think you know. You only know what you know. And if you don't listen, you're going to miss the lessons. So I think it's pulling me to a greater level of, but I just didn't know that I had this in me still to be able to get pulled. I didn't want to believe it. And I don't know that was a conscious choice not to. It's definitely better. So from a logic standpoint, this metric is easy to say, you've done your job, but do we ever? I mean, you're advanced and you're getting lessons. You go up there and talk about your lessons with the Fuji, and you know what I mean? Like, so I've come what I know, especially from being in unity, there's no end goal. There's no end goal. It's just be the light. Like, and as much as I speak that, I got stuck in me, you know, in my mind, in this version of self. And so the long answer to a short question is, I want out of the prison. Like I want out of the prison, and I would like to see Vinny out of his to the extent that he can at his age. And then hopefully this lesson, whatever it winds up being, is delivered in a way that he carries it. And maybe at a young age, you know, I told him, like, look, I missed a lot of things, and I didn't do it right. So when you're ready, maybe he's cool with us talking about this, which is huge. But and he wants to do a podcast. So, but he's not ready for that. But I told him, I'm like, there's families who, if they see us talking about this and being honest, might save a life or two, you know, like, so I kind of see that. I see the desire in him. He's not through where he is in terms of his blockages, but there's a desire, which gives me a lot of hope. You know, I hope he's getting his cake, you know, and I hope he flies earlier than his 30s. But if it takes him that long, then so be it.
Right.
What about you? What are you hoping to get out of it?
I don't know what.
This whole pandemic and connection and the whole thing.
Well, I'm already getting, have received so many amazing blessings over this past year. Year and a half, 2 years. But one of them that is topically connected to this conversation, but not what Vince was just talking about, is my job. I'm lucky that I've been able to work through the pandemic, and because everything I do is remote, but what I do is amazing, and I'm in contact with students all over the world who are bettering themselves in incredible ways, individual to them, through mindset work, classes, and we do amazing ways of, you know, connecting them through groups. We just finished this 100-day challenge with them, and to me, to answer the question, what am I getting out of it? That's a kind of service that fills me up every day so much, even on a Sunday, you know, even when I'm not working. It's just part of what my life is about now. And I feel it and see it reverberating in the rest of my life. So how I was then able to show up and be open to meeting Vince, for example, you know, how we met was through his human condition Instagram. Like I didn't even know who this guy was. I just liked his Instagram, which was very little about him and all about ideas that he was interested in, promoted, and then eventually, after months, you know, we made contact the way you would through Instagram, and then it just developed from there. But I don't think I know for certain personally I wouldn't have been open to that in the same way a year and a half ago. Just in terms of functionality, I've never been huge. Not super trusting in the social media space like maybe some slightly younger people would be.
I mean, and that's good discernment.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's that too. But then it, you know, just everything what we were saying yesterday in terms of the way that we're able to move forward and see a future differently now is also because there's a critical mass of people functioning differently in the world and communicating differently and having a whole new set of expectations, whether they be positive, negative, anywhere in between, like you said earlier, that's about there's more gray than there is black and white. We can just open ourselves up to trust more, have the discernment. But how can we do that if we are able to see someone fully in front of us? So instantly we could see that each other was showing up fully. And those hours and hours and hours long conversations that we could have for months with no high heels, no fancy restaurants, no, you know, any of those things that distract you in your initial sort of dating process, that was just taken off the table instantly.
And like impact theory, which is because you look and you see, oh, do I want to follow this person back? And on human condition, well, if there's not something there that makes sense, well, probably not, you know, because you get a lot of bots and whatever, and oh, she works at impact theory, and I was familiar with so
Plus
that
my Instagram feed is full of bikinis.
well,
No, it's not.
no, I didn't know who she was for a while, and then I just posted this one pair. I'm like, ooh, she's actually hot too. But it was that, like this ideas. It was the ideas, this common, and people can fake that. They do it a lot, and I've been burned on some people faking the funk, right? So like but it was real, and you could tell. And then and then you get connected by ideas and beliefs of how you would like to see the world, and then you have that first conversation. That's all you can talk about. Well, there's something, because there's the mask we're off, and I think that's allowed for you hear it a lot. There's and I'm not saying every marriage is going to be healthy that arose to the pandemic, but you do hear a lot of these stories where, a friend of mine from England, she's like, yeah, this is weird, but I think I love the guy. And that's how I was. I'm like, this is weird, but like there's like I'm because you can just turn off. What was it? Valentine's Day, we're on Zoom for 8 hours, and then I started, even with Act Now, like it was doing something with my brain to where I couldn't remember seeing people on the screen. My brain was remembering it would create a place. Some of the conversations that me and Alexis would get into, or me and Phil, or like I'm in a place with them, and I have to like I really have to go back sometimes and say, no, the pandemic started then, so it had to be on the screen. And then after Valentine's Day, I woke up in my bed, and it was weird because I thought I was in France with her. There's some kind of phenomena there that I think is pretty beautiful, because in reality, in terms of connection, where electromagnetism, right? Like there's really no touch, there's a sensation, and then the signal gets sent to our brain and we think we feel it. So, Carl Jung talks about the different segments of the brain and how we will evolve into telepathy at some point. And I think that if you're taking this the right way, we're moving in that direction. And I think this is really, I don't think this, at first I had a negative feel like, well, this is AI trying to get us to communicate through 2 dimensions and blah, blah, blah. But no, there's some genuine connections that were developed through this, and we will connect again on a physical level. But if we were not able to, the alternative of the 1700s and being stuck in a little shack with only the dysfunctional people around you, or being able to reach out to a community at large and find your people, either positive or negative, flat earthers or not, like being able to is a beautiful, beautiful thing if people use it right. You can connect without being in physical space. The ultimate goal is to get in that space, because there's nothing like being able to look somebody in the eyes and feel that energy up close and personal. I think we'll learn as humans to feel. We do feel people. Quantum entanglement. You feel lifetimes of things that go through your body, and connections to things that you don't even know exist, to God, to whatever you want to consider source. You're never not connected. I guess that's the thing, is we're never not. We just believe in our confinement to the 5 senses that we're disconnected. We're really never not connected.
That was interesting, because I read the description for this episode, and you talked about loneliness, how people are in this pandemic, but they're feeling lonelier than ever. And can we have those connections, in this type of setting that we find ourselves in? Can we have genuine, authentic connections?
Well, this is giving us the opportunity to get closer, right? Because it is taking away, it takes away so many of what we normally experience in senses, and use as crutches too, that physical experience of coming and going, like you were said earlier, also around how, do we take time to just sync with ourselves? Same thing here. And back to your question, what do I want to get out of it? Actually,
I just jumped all over that, didn't I? Sorry.
You got, well, give me an opportunity to reflect. So, you made me remember something that I discussed with another really spiritually in touch friend of mine before 2020, which is around how, because my family's all over the place, and so I've developed high tolerance for long distance relationships. Not everyone in my family has equally high tolerance, but it's definitely something that I don't know if I'm good at it, but I'm better than the average person, at least just by nature of force. But something around that initial training in some way, she said there's something around the virtual virtual world that's going to be incredibly important in your life.
Mhm.
And it will rise like a bridge under your feet to take you to where you're meant to be.
Mhm.
And I've never said that out loud to anybody, but that's what came to mind when you asked that question. So I think that's definitely, those bricks are forming something, some path.
I brought some bricks in.
Yeah, you did.
That's great. That's powerful.
What about you, Glenn? I mean, spiritually, your ability to connect with people has certainly expanded on some level in terms of people who can hear you.
Mhm.
But what else?
You know what I really meditate and pray on, every day is that I show up demonstrating power, dominion, and authority over all things, on earth, and that comes from the point of creation. I'm really into, Genesis and, at the point where God, the Almighty created, everything. And he said that man and woman is supposed to have power, dominion, and authority over all things. And the Christ spirit within you shall lead the way. And, we talked about this idea of loneliness. We know we're not supposed to be alone. We're supposed to be connected. God made man and said it's not good for man to be alone. And so he created female. And so right from the very beginning in Genesis, it sets the stage for the need to be connected. And so I think it's that connectivity, is that drive that I have now, is how can I use all of my experiences, talent, skills, knowledge, and oneness, with the Almighty to help people down their path, because I see so many people who are in the world and of the world, and they're lost in the world because of that. The world is leading them instead of the Christ-centeredness leading them. And I want to show more and more people that the way I live, more and more, it's that everyday battle, that choice that I'm not going to fall, prey to the world and what the world wants me to do, which is the easy thing for me to do. And I could hide out in that larger world so easily and play successful at this point, and nobody would know that I'm an imposter if I did that. But if I take that narrower path now, it challenges me every day to wake up with the idea I want to be a light and illuminate the path for self and others. And with that light, comes a responsibility that people see you in that light. And it's almost like a spotlight where it makes me make better decisions. And that's where I want to be. I want that pressure, that perceived pressure. It's not real pressure, because I believe I'm moving more and more towards my authentic self, and my authentic self is more like the Christ than it is of the world. So there's a book by Richard Rohr, and in the book, it talks about how at different stages of our life, and he says there's 2 stages. In that first stage, we're running around and we're trying to espouse the values of others, saying we have to hunt and gather things, whether it's relationships, money, careers, the cars, and all the trinkets and toys. And then you come to a point where you realize those things, once you accumulate them, every time you have that high point of achieving that, you realize this is not as great as I thought it was. It's not as grand as I thought it was. So you're seeking more. And that more to me is something that's higher. It's in that higher consciousness, that super consciousness that we know is really our true self. And so that's really what I'm seeking now, is to bring more people into that fold of seeing themselves as spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around, the human experience leading us into a spiritual experience. Meaning that most people wait till they're hurt, they use their last card, they played their last card and they realize it's not the winning hand. Then they'll come, and turn to a spiritual, point in their life, or a spiritual being, and it could be God, they call out for. I definitely want to teach people that it's the reverse that's more important and more fulfilling.
That's that's what this podcast is. You know, for me, like I was fearful initially because I was still going through, and I'm still very, not as much of a patient as I was, but I'm still a patient. Like I still have to work. It's still daily work. But I was concerned that, well, what happens when there's different opinions and somebody gets confrontational, and you know, how am I going to react? But I knew I needed to connect, and I needed to get out of my shell, where I intellectualized, and I just knew all these things, and I needed to start challenging myself with because it really is. I've never learned anything from anybody who agrees with me all the time. Like, you know, we have great conversations and they feel good, and we can validate each other, but if I'm not getting some form of disagreement, even if it's just on semantics, like there's no benefit. I mean, other than you like minds, but like minds disagree. You know, we have different life experiences,
Right.
and we come from different places. That's why I wanted Sophie to come back. So let the kid talk. Sophie, what do you hope to get out of this pandemic? Is there a bright spot? You can talk into the microphone. The world's listening to you now. When's the world? No, don't be shy. It's just us three. Four.
What do you mean a lot?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah. What lessons?
Lessons.
In terms of connection. Like connection with your friends. Did you benefit more being in school, or was it tough? Was it tough when you had to go virtual? Was it better virtual?
No, but the only thing better about virtual is we got to wake up an hour later.
That's just spoken like a kid. But you like being around people?
People who I like.
Okay, that's very honest. Wait, is that why you don't want to be around me?
Maybe.
I noticed a difference when they went back to school, like from because they don't know how to connect. They get told how to connect. And like we did, we're part of the mass market generation where everything was just force fed, and it's that I got this serious pop culture dilemma that we've been doing. We just started it last week with I don't know if you're familiar with Jude Angelini, Jude. Eminem's, he has the All Out show. He has ever since Shade 45 started, Eminem's radio station on satellite. So he's a blatantly honest guy who talks very honestly about his experiences. But this pop culture, I call it a disease. It's a pretty strong word, but it took me to my 30s to get out of high school, to get out of that clique mentality. And I wrote, you saw Life Goes On. Life Goes On was me trying to kill that guy, that character that I'd created to fit in, because I got sick of fighting. I didn't want to fight anymore. So I said, let me see what they're doing and let me do it better than everybody else. And I created that guy, and I hated that guy. I didn't hate him. I disliked him. He did. Once I acquired the things I thought were important, and I realized that they weren't, and I felt the soul being sucked out of me, and I couldn't speak that way because I had no God. I had no spirituality to fall back on. It's just, I knew I wasn't right with myself. And I didn't know I was writing that thing as a death letter to that part of me. Like a therapist pointed that out. They're like, you know what you did? I'm like, wrote a movie. I wrote a movie. A friend died, and then I changed the ending. I didn't really look into what that actually was, because there was a reason. I've written other movies, and my character's name isn't the same, but I kept his name Vince for some reason, and then I killed him. Spoiler alert for anybody who made it's been out long enough now. You can't watch it. No, not yet. That's gonna be a while. The internet. Yeah, so on the what was I? You made me lose my train of thought. I was talking about Glenn said something about Man, you made me lose it. Anyway.
Well, I'll jump in then. You were talking about the pop culture disease. That
Yeah.
was what you first started working on, but it made me think of something that sort of ropes into this question I still have on the, our brain is in blackness, our connection, or where is the connection coming in? These are tools. Maybe they're more than tools. I was journaling about it earlier. It's a bridge. It's something that we can navigate using like a compass. But it's to get somewhere to the other side. This isn't the end all be all. But when you said pop culture disease, which I've heard you say before, but just now, I thought maybe it's not. Maybe it's more of like a parasite, because of especially how reality TV is so huge now. Especially the more dysfunctional kind. I'm talking about that's like glorifying people being horrible to each other, and literally for hours on end, people will watch other people being horrible to each other in what is supposed to be some version of real life. And connected also to what you're saying about the news cycle, what does that mean about what are we really looking for through that kind of entertainment? There is a numbing out, disconnection from self, disconnection from others, validation of maybe what we are experiencing in our lives, which you said earlier. But
yeah,
I don't know, somehow what you said, I'm connecting it now to the sort of idea we have of the matrix.
Yeah.
The matrix and the way that it's expressed in the movie itself is a parasite.
yeah. It is. It's more like people are looking for confirmation, of the negative things that they sense about life. And if you look at life, approach life through that lens, you'll discover it. It's just like TV. When I found out that most people spend 4 to 6 hours watching TV or searching the internet, if I want to stand out and be different, I do the opposite. Just like as I get older, if I want to stand out physically, just don't eat the junk that most people eat, and so you won't fall into that prey, that myth, that lie that with age you deteriorate and you get fat. It's the same thing as when you pass through career choices, that your value diminishes. You're constantly able to reinvent yourself, rebrand yourself, repackage yourself. But the question is, you muster up the confidence and more so the energy and the time to do that. And then when we talk about that whole idea of loneliness and connection, I would beg to say it's most people run so fast in a lane that they don't want to be in that they bypass the time to hit the pause button and say, who are the most important people in my life? Let me give Vince a call, let's check in with them. Who are the top 5 people? And I do that. I have a top 5 people, list, and I make sure I check in with them every week, top 5. But that's something that we have to do to keep that connection. And those top 5 people, believe it or not, they're not people that I work with, unless we've built a relationship, beyond, work. The chances are it's not the people that I spend most of my waking hours with in the job setting, and so those are the people that I have to afford time to. And so I would ask people who are listening today, do you have that list? And are you making sure that you do check-ins with those people, to keep that connection strong? Because those are the relationships that we're actually nurturing that are going to carry us beyond our current condition, our current experience, our current, career path, and other things that are vying for our time right now. We're not, building those relationships. We will come to the pandemic and feel like there's no one that we can reach out to because we disconnected from them for so long.
Well, that's syncing up, right? You take that time out, and if they're not people that you're surrounded by, then it's not convenient for you to check in. That's you're putting in effort into syncing. and you know, they're of similar mind and or at least on a growth trajectory. Those would be the people I prefer to call. They're on a growth trajectory. They don't have to be grown, because I don't know what that is exactly, but yeah, on what you were saying, the parasite thing, you know, and then going into radical forgiveness, like our souls are constantly dancing and inviting things into our life that are going to challenge us to grow. And I think collectively, that's what we've done with pop culture, with the way things are right now. And we're really being challenged with social media in a way that humanity never has before. We're now living Moore's law, where every 18 to 24 months, society takes a quantum leap, right? So we're advancing very fast, and this is our way, right? What are we going to feed AI? AI is not going anywhere. What are we going to feed it? Are we going to feed it the worst parts of us, or are we going to start giving it some good stuff? Some of this, right? Or are we going to continue to feed it nonsense? And I know for me personally, I thought I hated being bossed around. I didn't. When I was a kid, don't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. When I got to boot camp, this is the second time in my life where I'd say it was saved. It was 15 at Camp Oakland. And then when I got to county boot camp, it was because I got in a fight in school. So it was military without the weapons training. It was boot camp. You just didn't, they weren't going to teach you to shoot anything, you know? I went in there to sabotage the boot camp because I didn't like the way my friends were being treated, who also got charged with me in the crime. And I got sentenced to more time than anybody because I was an asshole. I was, you know, in court talking junk, and the judge said, "You're the ringleader. You're going to a year in the county." Well, I talked my way into boot camp and did good behavior and trusty camp. Anyway, got into boot camp, and my entire intent was to try to sabotage it because I didn't like the way they were treating people. And I fell in love. I was screaming for discipline because it's a big world. Like kids, and it just got bigger through this thing. Like it's big enough when we were kids, and if we didn't have the proper guidance, not iron fist rule, but guidance. Like here, stay within these parameters, and you'll be better. I'm not saying you can't look outside, but try these for now. And I loved it. And I tried to get into the military. I took the ASVAB and tested real high. And one of the drill instructors that everybody hated, but I loved him, was drill instructor Hanau. He was a recon Marine. And I got all gung ho. I'm like, I'm going recon, you know, and I tested high enough, and they fought for months. I'm glad I didn't get in because I would have been a lifer. But I had 2 felonies on the same charge, 2 low felonies, so they couldn't expunge them, and I couldn't get in. But that goes back to what you were saying. Like, I think that this is our doing. We've done this, right? And it's time for the people that, you know, if you can take this and you can realize that you've asked for it, now find what the lesson is in that, and what are you going to do with it? You know, because that when I fell into that discipline, and it's right as soon as I got out from there, my ego crept back in, and then I got to fit into this now, and I said I was an actor, so let me go out to Hollywood and do this, and you know what I mean. So I kept going astray, but I had this new compass that I could even subconsciously, it was instilled in me. Like it's not something that I could easily escape from without drinking it away or drugging it away or sexing it away or gambling. Like I could fall into any compulsion and not think about things. But I think if people can look at this, not so as it does nothing to villainize connection and alternative methods. We should be capitalizing, not villainizing.
Right. And getting away from that either or, which that's really old school reactionary. I think some people are not past that because it's so hard to manage still. You know, it's bad because X, Y, and Z.
This is bad, this is good.
So yeah, giving new examples of how it's positive, and that critical mass of people who've now had to really transform their lives virtually. That is plenty of positive examples now.
Yeah.
We're doing one right now.
Yeah.
This conversation.
Yeah, but it's interesting because we never want to admit that we called into being everything that we're experiencing.
No, you do not, because no matter what, you're part of it somehow.
Yeah, you know.
Blame serves nobody. Villainizing serves nobody. It's like, how can I go inside and figure out what my part was in this? Because that's what I need to adjust.
Yeah, and it could be that you called into being that person that you're in that bad relationship with, you know, but you got divorced from, you know, but you ran through, you know, the need to have someone, and you didn't realize, okay, I need to call a timeout, get in that space where I figure out what do I really want in a mate at this point in my life. You know?
Yeah.
That's what we don't, you know, and then that's the whole template for life, you know, getting alone inside in every aspect of my life, my mind, my body, my spirit, my career, you know, how to make money, you know, how do I want that to appear, you know, and then move towards it.
I think that Glenn always it'll go to, I don't even know if you meant to have a ending thought right there that people can fester on, but I think that's probably the best thing to end this on is that, to ponder that, because that's really the question, you know, and how do you get it? We need each other.
Yeah.
We need each other in a big way, and not in a codependent, not in a selfish way, but interdependence. Like we need each other to help. We mirror each other, you know, like, so stop judging and try to take it in, just seek to understand. And in that understanding, you can find what it is you need to take it to the next level. This has put us in contact with people we would never been in contact with in a million years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you see what it's doing for racism and the conversations that are happening on that. Like, these things don't happen without this thing. They don't. This is no mistake.
No, and that's what the magic of Zoom has been, you know, is that it's brought a lot of people to a conversation that would never have availed themselves because they wouldn't have made time to listen and be part of the discussion.
I mean, the distrust of this thing, but now you were forced into it. Thank you. You know, and now it's like, no, look, I'm showing you something. There's some value here. Get out of your own way. Step out of the ego. It's fake anyway. Move on. You know. But, all right. Well, yeah. We'll keep these conversations going, Glenn. It's always. I always have to do more work when I get off these conversations with you. I got to go back to the drawing board. But
well, they always say we're all a work in progress. You know.
Yeah.
But that's the key is, you know, we got to make progress. At the end of every day, we have to have that looking glass experience and say, you know, did I make progress today? Or did I, you know, put up a barricade and not allow myself to make progress? Because no one will stop us from making that progress if we're determined to go inside and make sure that our spirit, which is our highest self, leads us forward.
Got to be honest with that question. Like, that's the question. And if you're honest, then you can find at least one thing that you can do better than you did the day before. One thing, one baby step thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's always something. I will make my bed before I leave my house. You know, something. There's something, and people don't realize. Some people, a lot of people, don't realize the benefit that those baby steps have to the bricks, like you said, the little bricks that you're starting to create. And your connection to purpose, like just from making a bed or brushing your teeth at night, like getting your ass off the couch and going and laying in your bed and intentionally sleeping. That, I know that's one of the things I had to wrestle with, is when I didn't want, I could go on forever. We're in 8 o'clock right now, but
that's a good point, because I would challenge people, you know, look at how you're using your 24 hours a day. You know, get out a piece of paper and a writing tool and chart out, how am I using my 24 hours a day? I'll give you 8 to 10 hours to sleep, but then that's a lot of waking time. And how am I using that time? Is it to move towards my highest self or to move towards my lowest self? You know, and my lowest self finds me filling myself with traumatic experiences, whether it be through social media, TV, or relationships that I have that I know are not helping me grow and go forward. And that's the way we measure these relationships too right now. And there's nothing wrong with hitting a pause on a relationship. If you're trying to move forward, you evaluate a relationship and saying, is this relationship helping me to grow and go forward? And the answer is very simple, because again, it's usually a gut feeling that you have, you know, if you're honest, and that could be family member, you know, a friend, co-workers, but you do, because you use so much of your time and your energy trying to fit into their world and make yourself out to be acceptable to them, because you know that they're not moving at the speed of you.
The speed of you.
That is so powerful and so useful for so many people. Then another great note to end on.
Yeah.
I see it every day. People, the reason our community is so strong, where I work at Embark University, is because, well, one of the reasons people are able to get and sync up with others on a growth journey who aren't necessarily the people around them on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really necessary to do that and to reevaluate your relationships if you need to.
You know, we hate to do that, you know, relationships. Something about the human condition, not the spiritual condition. You know,
Right.
you know, the spiritual condition always calls us to a higher self, you know, and higher relationships where we take the lead and we let people follow us, you know, like Jesus did. Jesus says, I'm going to be my highest self, you know, and others will follow at some point when they realize, you know, that I was the great teacher, I was the great demonstrator, or I am still the great teacher, I am the great demonstrator. They'll follow. At their lowest point, they'll realize that there's got to be something higher when they look up. And they see that there is their spiritual self, their divine self, which is higher than their human self and the human condition that they face.
Perfect. It was perfect. I appreciate it, Glenn.
All right, well, I enjoyed the two of you. Glad you're here in the US.
I know, me too. Me too.
Maybe I'll get a chance to meet you in person one day soon.
Yeah, I
One
mean,
step closer, one step
yeah, I mean, we're there every Sunday virtually. So we'll set another one soon. And you know, I know you're busy, and we're all busy, right? But
Right.
there's value.
Yeah,
I don't know where you find your hours. I want to try to find some of those hours too. You got a day buried somewhere that you get access to that none of us get. But that comes with growth, I'm sure.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we both appreciate you coming on, and I know everybody else out there does. It's always powerful. The feedback's always good when you're on, and we'll keep it going.
Right. Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. Congratulations to the two of you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. Have a good night, Glenn.
Thank you.
It's a human condition. Keep your questions coming, comments. I didn't get to them like I never do, but I will, I promise. And if you have anything for Glenn, send it to me and I'll forward it over to him. But yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Glenn. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right.